Welcome to Drive for Service, a podcast to inspire higher quality of service. Welcome everybody to our podcast. This is Drive for Service. My name is Melania Battison and I'm the head sommelier and wine buyer at Medlar restaurant in Chelsea, London. And on my side, David O'Connor, the co-owner of Medlar and also the restaurant manager.
Hello.
The reason why we're doing this podcast is to highlight the importance of service in our industry. But not only, we'd like to inspire and also be inspired by the great lineup of guests we will have on the show. Am I right, David?
That's right. As you know, Medlar, we do take service very seriously. It's a very important component of our business. It's going to be very, very interesting to chat to some of the guests we have on. And hopefully we can inspire anybody that wants to listen and be inspired ourselves, because I do believe there's another level. Service at Medlar, we try to make people feel good. I think we've reached a very, very high level at the moment because the team has been together for quite some time. They all embrace our culture and we're pleasing many people. And they keep coming back again and again and again. But I do believe there's another level. I do believe there's more to learn. And I guess this is the whole point of this podcast.
And I guess every single person working at Medlar knows that there is a principle of brilliant basics and magic touches.
Yeah.
And we all believe in that. But I know that this principle is not coming from the hospitality industry necessarily, but from another segment of the industry.
Yeah, I mean, customer service is something I'm very interested in. And the philosophy of Medlar about brilliant basics and magic touches, it actually comes from Virgin Atlantic. I employed a girl once who was the receptionist at Medlar for the first 5 years, called Amy. And she had worked previously for Virgin Atlantic, and her customer service skills were absolutely outstanding. And I loved hearing the stories of their trainings.
So what's that like?
Well, they're judged and rewarded for the job they do, which is the basics.
Okay.
And also, on top of that, they're rewarded for what they can do extra for each and every customer that is flying with them. And I love that idea, and I love the way that they train them how to do it. And I thought I could implement that easily with our standards in Medlar, and that's basically what we try to achieve at Medlar.
So if you have to translate it like in a restaurant environment, so what are the basics and what the magic touches can be?
Well, the basics is the order of service, or the technical side of the service. So, for example, when you come to Medlar, you're welcomed. You get something to eat, something to drink, and something to read pretty much straight away. So this is one example of a Medlar basic. It's the technical side, the order of service, let's say, that's specific to Medlar. And everybody has to follow it no matter what, because that is the Medlar basic. Now, once everybody's doing that, and it's automatic, like as automatic as driving a car, let's say, then the team are encouraged to use their own personality and their own nous, let's say, to find ways to make it extra special for each customer and each person that's dining at Medlar. And this way, while they're using their own personalities, and it makes the energy and the atmosphere very special, and it stops it feeling very contrived as well, which is something I don't really like in many restaurants. And that is what we're trying to achieve. And as I said earlier, we're achieving that at a high level simply because we have a team that's been together a while and they're all embracing this culture and they're putting in maximum effort.
Yeah. But I guess you're very strict when it comes to standards.
Yeah.
And I know it very well, in the good or in the bad. But where does the high standards philosophy comes from? Why is it important?
The high standards is very important because it achieves consistency and inspires confidence as well for the customers when they come in the room. They already know. You can tell they already know that they're in good hands. But in terms of where it comes from, The standards that I aspire to are the standards that I worked at many years ago with a restaurant manager called Patrick Fishna.
Yeah, which is going to be a guest in our show, no?
He's our first guest on the next show, yes.
Okay.
So I have not I've not really spoken to him much since I worked for him, which was in 1998. But certainly he instilled in me the highest standards. I've been doing it 30 years now, and I've not seen anybody with higher standards or anybody as good as Patrick. So I guess I was very fortunate enough to work with him in that time. And I still aspire to those standards today.
Mm.
And he pushed me, let's say, to the limits of what I thought was possible for myself and a standard of service. And it's something that we try to achieve at Medlar. And certainly, even though I worked with him a long time ago, his DNA is certainly at Medlar for sure.
Yeah, I think we can all feel that, really. Especially for how tough you are when it comes to standards and the way you protect the standards. Because I think, most of people maybe don't know, we have David, actually, has a certain way of protecting the standards. May I share it?
Sure.
Okay, great. So the idea, the way, it's called DEFCON. We got 5 levels. So the first one, when David would like you to do something, would like us to do something, is he's going to ask you really kindly in a really nice English manner. The second, if you don't do it, okay, we're going to the second part. So DEFCON 2 would be David asking you assertively, also in a very English manner. The third DEFCON, which I think I've never crossed that part yet. Which one is it?
Sarcasm.
Yes, sarcasm. So that started to be quite tough to receive. And then we got DEFCON 4, which is basically aggression. Is it?
I get a bit cross, yeah.
Yeah. I think I've seen that one. It's not funny to see. And last but not least, you basically are out of the restaurant in 2 seconds. Well, either because you cannot stand him anymore, either because it's just too much to take. But this is what I love also about Medlar and David's management is, despite how tough is got the courage to say, listen, you don't want to work the Medlar way? That's the door. Please see you later or never see you again. And I think it takes a lot of courage, but also it takes believing in your values so much and believing what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a management style, let's say, that I've developed over the years. I think I'm better explaining it now, as you've just explained it, so everybody knows where they stand.
Yeah.
Whereas before, I expected people to just understand it, and the people that did succeed and the people that didn't, everybody's got different ways of managing, but this is just how I protect the standards. I defend them as if my life depended on them, because that's what it takes to deliver high standard of service day in, day out, no matter who's working, no matter how many staff we do have or don't have. I mean, it has to happen no matter what.
We know that.
And that's where it comes from. And it does come from Patrick Fishna, who we're going to meet on the next show.
Yeah. But something interesting that you said, I think, about Patrick also is you thought you knew your limits, and then you discovered that your limits is probably somewhere else. And what I want to touch on there is did the service has changed, when you used to work for Patrick and now? So there was perhaps more things to do on the floor rather than now?
Well, there's certainly a very, very high level of technical service. We did more get-it-on service for sure.
So craving and stuff.
We carved 1 or 2 dishes at the table, yes. But all the details that we do at Medlar still had to be done and on time. And it doesn't matter how busy you were, they just had to be done. And in those days, we used to smoke in the restaurants. So you had to light every single customer's cigarette.
Yeah.
As soon as they got a cigarette out, you had to be there to light it. And as soon as they put it out, you had to be there to change the ashtray immediately.
Even if it was 1 cigarette in the ashtray?
Yeah. I mean, you
wow.
I mean, all these details that, when I was working there, you found it impossible in the beginning. And I was very young at the time, probably about 20 years old. So I thought it was all absolutely impossible. But then, of course, after a while, you become better and better and better until it becomes automatic.
Yeah.
And that level of speed of thought and high quality technical service has always been with me ever since, like a tattoo. So I'm very grateful that I worked in that team at the time. I think it was a very, very elite environment for sure. And if I think now that the team I worked with in that time, every single one of us has gone on to open our own businesses. And I think that's,
impressive.
I think that's where Patrick has changed our lives in many ways.
Yeah, I agree. So now as a professional, you do have your high standards.
Mm-hmm.
You know that you probably have you have limits, but you went above them. So what's the next step? Where did you move after Patrick?
After Patrick Fishna, I went to work at a restaurant called The Square in Mayfair. And at the time, it was probably one of the most important restaurants in the country. 2 Michelin stars, firing in all 4 cylinders, some outstanding individuals working there, extremely busy. You're talking 80, 100 covers of service. At those standards, it was, a big restaurant for sure. And I wanted to go and work there after the Ori. It seemed like the place to be. And so I applied for a job there, and I met the maitre d', Jacques. So I turned up in Mayfair, I was probably early 20s, these big glass doors. Oh my God,
More air?
Definitely more hair, yeah. I don't think they liked my hairstyle at the time, but anyway. So I turned up and I for the interview, and Jacques Carlino, who's also going to be a guest on this show. So he greeted me, he's a big, imposing bloke. And he literally said, "Oh, you worked for Patrick Fishna?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Well, when can you start?"
Right away,
it wasn't even an interview. It was just like he knew that I'd managed to work with Patrick Fishna for a certain amount of time, so he knew how I would be able to do the job. And he was right, because as soon as I loved working there. I stayed there 5 years, but it was easy for me, I would say, after working for Patrick, because I knew how to work properly.
So if you say like it was easy, I mean, I guess like there were a different level of service, but what did you learn the most there, especially from Jacques, because you mentioned?
Well, Jacques was a world-class maitre d', and as I mentioned earlier, how busy the restaurant was, and literally every single customer that came in the door asked for Jacques. Where's Jacques? And to have that, the way he worked the room, let's say, and the way he entertained customers and cultivated all these regular clients that came back again and again and again, was on top of the outstanding food and all the other technical quality service that we gave. It just made the difference, I think, thinking back, and made it a very, very special place.
And do you know how he actually did that?
Well, no, I was quite young at the time. I didn't appreciate fully what he was doing. I mean, but it'd be interesting to chat to him on this, and to extract from him how he did that, and what his thought process behind that is.
Yeah. I mean, like, to be honest, like, I think we do a very good job, as like 90% of our customers are basically customers who come back like week after week, if not like twice in the same week.
Yeah. I mean, as you know, it's very important. Our regulars are royalty at Medlar. We love them all. I do think it's a team effort as well, that we look after our regulars. And it does come from Jacques about the importance of regulars. Yeah. And as I mentioned, Patrick earlier, the technical side of service. And that is part of the DNA of Medlar, I think. Yeah. And that's where it comes from.
So now we got our high standards, regulars. So what comes next? Because then you open a restaurant, but you would never being a manager.
No, I took after the Square. So I stayed there about 5 years. And then I took a job at a restaurant called Chez Bruce in Wandsworth. Mm-hmm. I took a manager's job there. I was head waiter at the Square, and I moved there as assistant manager.
Okay.
And after a few weeks, the manager left, And all of a sudden, I was 24 years old, and I was managing Michelin star restaurant in Wandsworth, and again, extremely busy. And I had no clue how to manage a restaurant. I knew I was a good waiter. That was one thing. But when you become a manager, especially in a new place, suddenly you're responsible for many more things. I'd never done reception before, for example. So I had to learn that. I basically had to learn on the job. In those days, it wasn't computerized. It was all,
everything written down.
Handwritten, yeah.
No.
And my handwriting is amazing. So it's
horrible. One of the most difficult handwriting I've ever seen.
I'd never had to think about the wine service, for example. I'd never had to manage other people before, apart from maybe a few people at the square who were like under me, let's say. But you had to think about the customers and the how to set the tone for the atmosphere. You have to think about what the kitchen are doing. I mean, there's many responsibilities. All the health and safety, all the boring stuff behind as well, and all the financial stuff. I mean, the responsibilities were huge, and it was a big gap. And I certainly suffered from imposter syndrome at that time.
I guess so, because how can you instill trust at 24 years old?
Well, I guess I didn't, but
well, that's honest at least.
I probably didn't treat staff as well as I didn't really know how to treat staff. So I mean, I treated some of them appallingly at that time. But you learn on the job, as I say, But I didn't like the feeling of not being a good manager. So this drove me onto a self-improvement program of studying, and I read a lot of books and took inspiration from many things. And I literally spent all of my spare time on self-improvement in order to be a better manager. And I'm very grateful to the owners of the restaurant, Bruce Poole and Nigel Platts-Martin, for supporting me in doing that.
Yeah.
And I think they got the rewards as well, because we built great teams, and we won lots of awards at the time.
Which is amazing. But you mentioned very briefly about wine. And I know at the time at Chef Bruce, as I actually know him because you introduced him to me. There is a really funny guy, I would say. Mm-hmm. His name he's Jason, and he used to work with you at the time. Is that right?
Yeah, so Jason McAuliffe was the sommelier at the time at Chef Bruce when I was working there. And how to describe him? Well, he's a bit wild, a bit of a maverick, charismatic, I would say. And it was amazing to work with him. As I mentioned before, the people I work with, they basically change your life. And what I found working with Jason at the time was that service could also be a lot of fun.
Yeah. I think we have that in Medlar, no?
Yeah, again, that's where a bit of the DNA comes from. And Jason McAuliffe is going to come on as a guest on one of these episodes. So that will be a fun one, I'm sure.
I think so.
And we just had a wild time as well. We had fun, and we were professional.
Yeah.
We had a great laugh doing it. And I think that showed me the importance of, although we take it very seriously, you can also have fun at the same time and still create something very special.
Yeah, and I guess this is all just to sum up, a bit of the DNA of Medlar, this brilliant basic, magic touches. You have the high standards, you have this sense of fun, and the importance of really building this long-lasting relationship. And this is why also I love working at Medlar. I've been working also in a free Michelin star place, best restaurant in the world, where you have to follow a script. And I just realized how much I don't like following scripts. And in Medlar, you can show your personality, share your knowledge, but still being yourself in a really, as we said, relaxed but elite environment. In a team, which I find they're my second family. And not just because you spend so much time with them, but also because, they love what they're doing. And you can feel that.
Yeah, I think the staff enjoy working at Medlar because they believe in the culture, and they thrive in that culture, and also they are improving as people because that's something we encourage. So
But one thing else I would like to mention is like, and I think this makes our life easier, despite we mentioned before how strict it could be and how tough you could be to handle, sometimes you're also very fair. And you're always trying to support us in a way on what we would like to do on the side. And I think what many places are missing is this work and life balance, which you're trying to support by, giving us sometimes the freedom that we need if we're doing a good job. I mean, we're always rewarded.
Yeah, I think it's really important that people work hard on themselves as well as what they have to do in their work.
Yeah.
It's really important for personal development, especially young people who, and nowadays, people don't always have the same career. I mean, some people work in Medlar. Their career is not hospitality, but they're doing a fabulous job. But also, they can have help in their own personal development to pursue their chosen career, which may not be in Medlar forever.
And this is amazing because one of our best waitresses and waiters that actually had a completely different background. We had Mada being like
she's a midwife.
Midwife, yes,
Yeah.
midwife. Sorry, I was thinking another term. Yes, midwife. So, and this is what I really found great. It's like we don't really look at CVs necessarily. We look at people's skills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, for me, it's much easier to train someone on the technical side of service to give high level of competent service, and if they're nice people. But I can't necessarily teach someone to be a nice person.
Yeah.
So that's really what we look out for when we're hiring at Medlar.
Yes, emotional intelligence, I guess, to sum it up. No, I think yes, it's a great place, and you should definitely come to visit us to experience this feeling of Medlar and the Medlar way. So now, just to conclude, we always do quick fire questions. I believe there are 6, maybe 7 today. I'm not sure. We see how this goes. But are you ready?
Go on then.
So what I would like you to do is just answer me with one word, okay? You can talk a lot. This is not the case today, okay? Just one word. Okay, so we're starting. What's your favorite book?
Favorite book? The Best of A.A. Gill. Phenomenal writing.
Okay, is 4 words.
Failed.
Yes. What is your lazy dinner look like?
Plate of cheese.
What is your favorite cheese?
Aged Comté.
Okay, good. 2 words. No, I'm joking. Okay. What has been your best experience service-wise in restaurants?
Le Cinq in Paris. Yeah.
We're going to write down the name. What else? Okay. What is the person you admire the most in the industry?
In our industry?
Yeah.
Danny Meyer.
And outside of our industry?
Wow, there's so many. I would have to say Jürgen Klopp. I have to.
Okay. And we have actually another question, which is the non-negotiable that...
Non-negotiables?
Yes.
What are my non-negotiables?
Yes.
I don't think we've booked the studio for that long.
Yeah, I agree, because there are too many. But I'm going to take the chance actually to wrap up our first episode. And thank you so much, everybody, for listening. And we can't wait to welcome you next week when we're going to have our first guest, Patrick Fishna, which is David's first boss. So you're going to see David probably scared to death. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to Drive for Service podcast. Follow us on Instagram @MedlarChelsea and make sure you like and subscribe for future episodes.